Hi, everyone. Great to see you. Thank you so much for joining today. My name is Emily Fitzrandolph, and I'm a certified teacher of Transcendental Meditation. And we're going to go ahead and get started in just a moment. And I'm going to talk a little bit about what TM is. Some of you might be very familiar with Transcendental Meditation. Some of you may have never heard of TM. But I'm going to talk a little bit about what the benefits are and how you can sign up to learn. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. So firstly, Transcendental Meditation is one technique. So it's a very specific mental technique, and it's not an umbrella term like mindfulness, which has a lot of different meditations underneath it. So TM is a very simple mental technique. It's practiced for about 15 to 20 minutes, sitting comfortably twice a day, eyes closed. And there's no belief system to TM, there's no lifestyle changes, there's no religious background at all. We teach lots of people every day from all backgrounds, all walks of life. And you can even have other meditation practices that you do. We love all meditations, but TM is very unique. And I'm going to spend some time today talking about why we consider TM effortless, effective, and why it's so easy as a very practical tool to fit into your life. So let's break down transcendental meditation. So transcendental means to go beyond, and meditation means to think deeply. So in transcendental meditation, we are going beyond the very active, busy surface level of our mind and experiencing this very silent, still depth below. So I'm going to use some visuals today. And if you've done any research or Googling on TM, you may have seen this analogy, but we love to use this analogy of the mind as an ocean. So just like the ocean, very active and busy at the surface, huge waves, but very still, very silent, very calm at the bottom. So this ocean we can relate to our mind. And I love this analogy because our mind is such a crazy, abstract concept, right? But we can think of this very concretely. Now, say in this ocean, we have some little sea creature crawling around and some bubbles come up from the depth of the ocean. And we experience the bubbles on the surface. Now, these bubbles have a source at the depth of the ocean. Now, just like this ocean, we could consider our mind very active, very busy at the surface. This is where we spend maybe 99% of our time, very articulated level of thoughts, making plans, lists, decisions. But down at the depths, we have this source, very quiet, very still. And we could consider these bubbles like thoughts. And have you ever considered where your thoughts come from, where our creativity, where our inspiration comes from? So just like these bubbles have a source, our thoughts have a source. And we can consider this the source of thought, or we could consider this pure consciousness. So when we practice TM, we use this very, very simple technique that allows the mind to transcend this very busy active surface level and experience the source, pure consciousness, very still, very silent at the depths. I know maybe oftentimes we feel kind of like a little boat, right? Tossed around by the surface. Now, what if we had an anchor, anchoring ourselves to the source? And this is what's beautiful about TM, is that it's very practical. We're not just meditating for 20 minutes to feel some relief. We're meditating for that deep silence, and then that silence and stillness carries into the rest of the day. So let's talk a little bit about some of the benefits. So what's actually happening when we practice this technique? TM is one of the most scientifically researched techniques out there. There's over 750 scientific research studies, and these have all been published in peer-reviewed journals. So incredible studies that look at what's happening not only in the mind, but what's happening in the body. And some really unique things start to take place when we practice TM. Firstly, when researchers have observed what happens in the brain when we contact this source of thought, this pure consciousness, is that the entire brain becomes completely coherent. So our brain has many different brain waves that happen during all activities of the day. But when we practice TM, this very unique brainwave pattern called an alpha 1 frequency is exhibited. And this happens when the mind is alert, it's active, and yet the body is experiencing deep rest. So this paradoxical state gives rise to this very nice brainwave called alpha 1. And when we see this alpha 1 brainwave, all the areas of the brain start to become coherent. They start to communicate. Now, in a normal brain, all the areas of the brain kind of do their own thing. They're not always communicating. And in a very stressed out brain, the prefrontal cortex, which is known as the CEO of the brain, stops functioning properly. Its job is to communicate and direct all of the other areas of the brain. In a stressed brain, there's actually a decrease in blood flow to that area. Now, scientists who've researched TM have seen that when we start to practice TM, there's actually a rush of blood to that area, an increase of blood flow, and all of the areas of the brain start to communicate. So we see all areas starting to connect coherently, and we see these very beautiful alpha 1 waves. So why is this significant? It's significant because when we look at alpha 1 brain waves, they indicate greater intelligence, greater creativity, better moral reasoning, better reflexes, better ability to handle stress. So when one practices TM, within about 16 seconds of practicing, if you're practicing properly, these alpha 1 brainwaves start to come up in the brain, and we start having total coherence. So not only do we see very profound effects in our brain, now we're thinking more clearly, we're acting more clearly, we're more creative, we're using full potential of our mental capacity, but researchers have also started to notice deep effects to our health. And this is also very significant, because if we think about it, what's blocking us from living a healthy, happy life? I would think that most of us could probably say that at some point in their day, in their life, they experience some anxiety, some stress. And stress is really what's blocking us from experiencing this pure consciousness all the time. I'm living here in Santa Monica, and we often use this analogy: the fog bank rolls in and it totally blocks the sun. Now, it's a beautiful sunny day, but we don't experience the sun, just total clouds, total fog. This is what stress does to the physiology. And normally we don't have a way of dealing with all of these deep-rooted knots of stress. TM has a beautiful way of addressing those deep-rooted knots of stress and starting to dissolve them, very physiologically, right? And we've looked at studies to see, well, what's actually happening when we get this deep rest. This is very significant with TM as well, because compared to other meditation techniques, we've seen that TM gives the body 2 to 3 times deeper rest than sleep. And that deep rest is what starts to dissolve deep-rooted stress. Now, it's not a replacement for sleep, but one of the most significant things that people start to notice within the first couple of days of learning is that they sleep better, right? Now we've had 2 opportunities during the day to dissolve some of that deep-rooted stress. So when we lay down our head at night on the pillow, we fall asleep much faster, and the quality of sleep is better. So sleep improves just as a byproduct of this technique. So we're getting this deep, deep rest. And some scientists, some statistics actually say that about 90%, 85 to 90% of all illness is psychosomatic, right? It's a buildup of stress. And we can see that when we look at elevated cortisol levels, right? The stress hormone, or we can see this with elevated blood pressure or clogged arteries, right? We're kind of blocked by stress. Now, this is a significant thing. The American Heart Association said that doctors can actually prescribe TM to patients with high blood pressure, right? So now we're moving away from medication and into meditation as a supplement. So amazing, amazing, profound effects. They've looked at hospitalization rates. People who practice TM have far greater chance of not going to the hospital for all categories of disease. So huge effects, not only to our mind, this ability to think more clearly, to be more creative, to be more focused, to be more centered, but we also start to notice profound effects to our health. Deep, deep rest. Another analogy I like to use is, say you have the flu, right? You're at home, you're in bed, and I got the flu. So you go to the doctor, and what does the doctor say? They say, go home, get some rest. It's like the first line of defense, right? When something's off in our body. So now with TM, we're allowing the mind to transcend this very, very active surface level of the mind, experience this silent stillness, pure consciousness, and dissolve deep-rooted stress. Get very, very, very deep rest. So we talked about the mind, we talked about the body, and I'm just going to talk about one more really interesting study about how we actually have a much broader effect on the world around us. And with TM, we use a lot of quantum physics language because it's really interesting to look at this very scientifically. It's one thing to say, I'm having these profound experiences through this technique, but what does physics say of what's happening? Now, there have been a number of sociological studies done on TM, 39 in fact, where they've looked at society. How do meditators actually affect society? And one that I'll highlight today is very interesting. So if you look at any society, any city, you can measure the stress level in a population by looking at a few factors, looking at crime rate and economy. So if you have strong economy, low crime rate, it's a low level of stress in the city. If you have high crime rate and the economy is doing well, low level of stress, low level of stress. So this was a study that took place in 1993 where 4,000 meditators went to Washington, D.C. And Washington, D.C. every year in July has very elevated levels of crime. For whatever reason, it's hot, it's muggy, kids are out of school. There's a high elevated level of crime. So they wanted to see what would happen. So 4,000 meditators went into Washington, D.C. and they just planned to meditate. And they went to the chief of police. They said, all right, we're going to go in, we're going to meditate. We'll just sit in our rooms and meditate. We'll go out, take some walks, and watch what happens to the crime rate. The chief of police was like, all right, you guys are crazy, go for it. And so they did this experiment. And usually that crime rate, month of July, increases 24%. So in the first week, this group was here, crime went down 10%. Second week, 17%. Third week, 21.3%. Crime was down. This is on record. Definitely Google it. Fascinating. And so they're saying, what's happening? Fourth week went down 24%. So the meditators went back to the chief of police. So the chief of police said, you know, we got it. We put all these programs into place. We're going to keep the streets safe and the city clean. And since this was a sociological study, the group left. In that week they left, first week of August, crime went back up 24%. So why is this significant? This is employing this concept of the field effect. Very simple concept, something that happens over here has an effect on something over here by virtue of underlying fields in space, right? And when we meditate as individuals, we're tapping into this source of pure consciousness. And now we're acting from that level. So it's like a ripple effect is created, right? You drop a stone in a pond and there's ripples that come out. The same effect. We're tapping into this source of thought, this level of pure consciousness, which has an impact on the world around us. So I find this fascinating because it's one thing to say, well, I'm going to help myself. I'm going to feel better and less stressed and less anxious, which is what we all want. But now I can have a broader effect on those around me, right? And you know, when you have more to give, you receive more. It's that two-way street. So really, really beautiful effects, not only on our own individual mental and physical health, but on the world around us. All right, so now I'm going to get into how does this work? What are we doing here? And I'll talk a little bit about how this works. I'll compare it briefly to some other meditations, just so you get a clear idea of why TM is unique, why it's so simple and effective. And then I'll talk about how you can sign up to learn. So I'm going to go back to my ocean analogy, right? This ocean, like our mind, very busy, very active on the surface, very still at the depths. Now, if I asked you to give me one word to describe your mind, most people might say busy, active, chaotic, right? We might use this term monkey mind even. This idea that our mind is always active, it's always moving, right? Now your mind might be moving right now, might be wandering, right? It's the nature of the mind to be moving. Now just like surface of the ocean, always moving, it would be totally crazy to try to stop the waves on the surface of the ocean, right? We can't do it. Just like that, it would be impossible to try to stop the mind from having thoughts. So in TM, we're just using the mind's own nature. We're allowing the mind with a simple technique to transcend the active surface level and experience quiet, calm stillness below. So to use a simple example of the mind is always moving, say you're walking down the street, totally engaged in a conversation with your friend, cars are driving by, you don't notice, but now a car drives by playing your favorite song on the radio and instantly your attention is drawn there, right? It didn't take any effort for your mind to go along to the song. Same way, it takes no effort for the mind to transcend using the simple technique. Now, why does the mind want to transcend? Because the mind is always seeking what's more enjoyable, what's more fulfilling. And there's nothing more fulfilling to the mind than its own source, where it feels the most expanded, most unrestricted, most unbounded, which is what we all want. We want to feel free, completely fulfilled. And the mind feels most fulfilled at its own source. So to briefly illustrate this, I'm going to compare it to two other forms of meditation, the big categories of meditation. There's three primary categories. The first is concentration or focused attention meditation. Now this could be like your classic meditation, you're staring at a candle flame, and anytime your mind wanders, you bring it back. Or focusing on the breath, right? Your mind is wandering, you bring it back. Now this type of meditation produces a unique type of brainwave called a gamma wave. Very high amplitude, high frequency brainwave. And this is indicative of a lot of effort. So this meditation, we could think about it kind of like treading water at the surface of the ocean. We're always bringing it back and bringing it back and bringing it back. Now, these meditations can be very useful, sort of training the mind like a muscle. And we could have an experience where we practice and the mind gets so exhausted that it sort of slips into this transcendent state, and we have that clear nirvana experience for a moment. But we don't know how long it's going to take to get there. It could take a lot of effort, and it may not happen every time. Now, the second meditation category is contemplation or open monitoring. And this could be a meditation where you're allowing the mind to think about something, maybe peace or love, or contemplate an idea. And these meditations produce a different kind of brainwave called a theta wave. Very pretty brainwave. And this is the same brainwave that's produced when we're dreaming. Now, these meditations can be very lovely at bringing us into the here and now. Very peaceful. But we can also say these meditations are sort of like swimming lazy circles on the surface of the mind, right? We're allowing the mind to wander and to contemplate. And both of these meditations, they're keeping the mind on the surface level. We're thinking about something, we're allowing the mind, or we're focusing sharply. Now, the third category of meditation is called automatic self-transcending. And this is where TM comes in. This third category, TM, automatic self-transcending, allows the mind, using this technique, to transcend that surface level and experience that calm stillness. And like I mentioned earlier, it produces its own type of brainwave called alpha 1. Very orderly, coherent, unique brainwave. And this brainwave indicates the least amount of effort. So we're getting to that place of stillness, that source of thought, with the least amount of effort. So how do we do this? When you learn TM, you are learning two things. We use a mantra, and just as importantly, you will learn the technique, how to use the mantra properly. Now, mantra is not unique. I'm sure many of you know this term mantra, right? And what do we think of mantras? Maybe something we're repeating, some phrase, something with some meaning, we're saying over and over and over again. Now, the mantras in TM are unique. They're totally different because the mantras that we use have no meaning whatsoever. Now, if you think of any word, any thought, there's two aspects. There's the sound value and there's the meaning. Now, if I took the word apple, there's the sound, apple, 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 and then there's the meaning. It's sweet, it's crunchy, it's delicious, it's red, it's green. Now, if I used apple as my mantra, I could do it, apple, 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 but eventually my mind will start thinking, oh, it's sweet, it's crunchy, fall, apple picking season, and then who knows what I'm doing. So the mantras that we use in TM, we just use them for their sound value. No meaning whatsoever. So they're sounds with no meaning. And TM is actually 5,000 years old. This has been around forever. This is not a new technique. This is a very ancient technique that comes from an Indian tradition, predates India from Vedic culture. And Veda means knowledge. So these sounds are time-tested, 1,000-year-old sounds with no meaning that allow the mind to transcend, instantly find that source, that pure consciousness. So when you learn TM, you're given a specific sound from your teacher, and you're also given the technique, how to use it properly. And this is so important. This is why we don't just pick up a book and learn TM. It's because you work one-on-one with a teacher who knows what sound is best suited for you, and then you learn how to use it properly. It's very simple, but we all have different learning styles. So you need to have that approach that gets that right mantra, right technique for you. So very important when you learn TM is you learn from a trained teacher. I mentioned that TM is very ancient tradition and it's taught in a very systematic way. So all of the certified teachers of TM are taught how to select the mantras, how to give this technique properly. And you can be assured that when you learn it, you're learning the way that it's been taught for thousands of years. You're learning that correct technique. So very important. And I've included some information on the board of how to find a teacher, and I'll talk about that in a minute. So we use this mantra, we use this technique, very simple, very profound, and we tap in to this place of pure consciousness. So how do you learn? First, there's a few requirements to learning that I'll talk about briefly. First is that we teach TM over 4 days. It's a 4-day course. And this is really important because over those 4 days, it's about an hour, hour and a half each day, the practice becomes very stabilized. First day, you learn one-on-one with your teacher. You're given your mantra, the technique of how to use it, and then you meditate on your own a couple times. You're already going to be meditating from that very first time. Then you come back the next day and we talk about, how do I know if I'm doing this right? How do I time myself? How do I sit? What do I need? Now TM, we don't need any special incense or chairs. We can truly do this anywhere. That's why we consider it portable. It's DIY. You can truly do it anywhere. But that first, second day, you'll learn the technique, and then how do I know if I'm using this? We'll talk about the basics. Then you'll come back and we'll talk about consciousness and our nervous system. What's actually happening in the mind and the body? How am I releasing this stress that's blocking me from pure consciousness? And by the fourth day, you'll learn, how do I expect to allow this to unfold in my life, right? Because we're not doing this just for those 20 minutes. We're doing this so we can lead busy, active, productive, successful lives. So over those 4 days, the practice becomes super stabilized. You know how to do it, what to do, and you can practice on your own for the rest of your life forever. So first requirement, you attend the 4-day course. Second requirement is that you bring a few items on your first day. So I mentioned briefly that this comes from this ancient Vedic tradition. So we start with a short gratitude ceremony. It's about a few minutes long, and the student just participates, just witnesses, nothing religious in any way about this traditional ceremony, but it's a nice way for the teacher to prepare themselves to teach. So the student will bring a few items, some fruit, flowers, and a white cloth for the ceremony. So second requirement is that you bring those items. Now, third requirement is simply physiological. We talked a lot about the mind, the body, and for your first day, we ask that before 2 weeks leading up to your first day, you refrain from any use of recreational non-prescription drugs and no alcohol 24 hours the day before. And this is simply because on that first day, we want you to have that really clear experience of TM properly. After that, it's on you, no lifestyle changes, but just for 2 weeks leading up, nothing else in the system. So 3 requirements. Now the fourth requirement is there is a course fee to learn. We are a nonprofit 501c3 educational organization, and a lot of the proceeds go back to helping other underserved populations. So we work with war veterans with PTSD, domestic abuse survivors, inner city school children. We try to teach as many people as possible So when you want to learn TM and you can find your TM center, they'll be able to provide you with more information on what that cost is for you. But we use a tiered approach so that you can learn at a level that feels right for you based on your income. So in order to sign up to learn, you can go to learntm.org/find-a-teacher or tm.org, and you can find a teacher in your area. We offer courses very regularly. Usually those 4-day courses are held all together. So that first session is one-on-one. The next 3 days are held in small groups. But you'll find a center close to you, somewhere that you can come in and be able to gain an understanding of this technique. Feel free to go to tm.org for any additional information. And it was so great meeting all of you, speaking with you, and I hope that you learn TM soon. Thank you so much for joining.